Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the opening round of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GT4 Championship for 2022. Today, we are at the Autodromo Carlos Pache, also known as Interlagos, for the season opening round of an all-new series brought to you by the Middle of the Pack Racing League community. And my goodness, do we have a fantastic round of racing ahead, and indeed a fantastic season ahead for you. But all that and more, and we'll dissect it very shortly. But before we do that, let's take you through our schedule for today. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. In approximately 15 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session. That'll be a 15-minute qualifying session to determine our driver's grid order for the purposes of our one and only race tonight, and that will follow immediately after. That will be a 20-minute sprint race from 6:30 this evening, and the only important thing about that is get to the head of your respective pack and come home the winner of your class by the end of it. On top of that as well, there's also a bonus point up for grabs with regards to the fastest lap, and on top of that there are some bonus points available, 2 bonus points for being on pole when your respective class within qualifying. And we'll talk about our drivers' classes and whatnot in a short order. This series is being brought to you via one or two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to TX141TX on YouTube, or also now labelled as Paul Walsh on YouTube, and tune in there. Alternatively, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 to tune in via Twitch. Who is TX141 or Paul Walsh? Well, that's me, your host and commentator. I'll be bringing you all the racing action live over the course of this series for the purposes of all 9 rounds. Now, when I do say live, I do need to make one thing slightly clear with regards to live action. The races you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, will have occurred in the past. We are technically doing a post-round broadcast. The races actually occurred on the Wednesday of the preceding week, but we're going to be bringing you all the race action as post-race commentary as if it were live. So I, as your commentator and host, do not know who has won the race, nor do I know how the race has played out, whether there's been any major incidents or anything along those lines. So it's going to be completely raw and fresh to me, and that means that for you guys and girls tuning in, unless you're one of the drivers who took part, of course, no spoilers in the chat, please, it will be the case. This will be given the proper experience, much like as if we were bringing it to you live on the day and the night of the racing. But with that in mind, it's only fair that we go to talk about the season ahead. Remembering that, of course, this series has followed on from the highly popular, what was the Touring Car Racing or the TCR series, which had a very similar format. So for those of you who are anoraks of the TCR series, it's going to look quite familiar. So taking you through then the season ahead, it is the case that we have got 9 rounds of racing for you, and it all started on the 25th of May earlier this week, on Wednesday the 25th of May at the Interlagos circuit. That is where we are today for the purposes of this broadcast, and in a week's time we will be heading to the Red Bull Ring, and afterwards we'll be heading to Suzuka. Now that marks the first of 3 stages in the calendar. We have 3 stages which denote a split, much like we saw the Cups in what was the TCR series, and it's the case that the first 3 rounds are known as the F1 stage. We've picked 3 circuits that are the most common circuits that you see on the regular Formula 1 calendar, whether it be all the way dated back to, say, the 80s and the 90s, all the way up to modern times. And Interlagos, Red Bull Ring and Suzuka are the 3 circuits that we feel are most synonymous at the Middle of the Pack Racing League community with Formula 1. After that, we'll be taking a week's break before we make our way over to the Americas stage for Stage 2, and that will kick off at Road America, then Watkins Glen, and then finally conclude at Daytona Road Course. And well, if you're wondering why we call it the Americas stage, I think it's the case. It's quite plainative in the fact that these are 3 American circuits and 3 very famous American circuits, and well, we'll be looking forward to seeing the race action take place over the 22nd of June, the 29th of June, and the 6th of July, after which we'll have another week's break before returning for Stage 3. And that is known as the Endurances stage. The reason for that, these 3 circuits are the ones you most commonly see associated with long-scale endurance events. And when we say long-scale here, we're not talking about 1 or 2 hour endurance races. We're talking about somewhere in the region of 12 all the way through to 24 hours of racing. And one in particular, this weekend, it is the case that we saw the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, the ADAC 24 hours of Nürburgring, and that is going to be our season finale. But before that, on the 3rd of August, we do head to Spa-Francorchamps for round number 8 on the 27th of July, and Mount Panorama, also known as Bathurst in Australia, for what is round number 7 on the 20th of July. And it should be pointed out that the format of the rounds will slightly vary from round to round, where it is the case within each stage, the first two races are qualifying followed by a single 20-minute sprint. So, for example, like today, Interlagos and also the Red Bull Ring, you're going to see the same format, but it is the third round which will be a feature race. So there is no qualifying. We'll talk about how the grid gets set in that round later today. We'll talk about it on the day, but it is the case that the third round within a given stage, so therefore rounds 3, 6, and 9 in this series, will have a 45-minute feature race with an all-important strategic element of a pit stop as well. But more details of that to come in the near future when we get to Suzuka. But for now, the first two rounds are sprint race. Indeed, then rounds 4 and 5 are sprint races, and as well rounds 7 and 8 will involve sprint races as well. Now, this series is all being brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform known only as iRacing, available on PC. And well, we thought it was the case that going from the TCRs to GT4s, the race is going to be ever so close, given the fact the iRacing balance of force keeps the GT4 class cars very close and intense. And with that intensity, that means that our drivers are going to be competing for some major prizes come the end of the championship calendar. And let's take you through those prizes. Well, as you can see, there are plenty of prizes to be won here, and we used the same format as from the TCR series earlier this year that ran from February to April, whereby it is the case that our winners in each of the drivers' classes, so in the Pro and the AM classes, will be picking up an invite to the 2022 Race of Champions event hosted by the MPRL community. However, we should keep in mind, it's not just the winners of each class, but also the second and third place finishers within the respective championships. On top of that, our winners within each of the stages of this championship, so that being the F1 stage, the America stage, and the Endurances stage, it will be the case that they will be picking up a prize of $5 United States for each stage they win, and that will apply to winners in both the Pro class and also in the AM class. And there will also be two $10 United States prizes up for grabs. They're two raffle draw prizes for drivers who have completed at least 8 rounds, and we should point out that our admins for the series are not eligible to pick up this round. We do have a couple of series admins racing, but to keep things fair, we do have a major independent stewarding board that does post race stewarding, and therefore if our admins are involved in an incident, they are not allowed to have any say on the incident. It goes to the independent stewarding board for fairness and transparency. And on top of that as well, there's a $10 United States prize up for grabs for the driver with the lowest number of in-game incidents over the 9 rounds, as accrued according to the iRacing instant penalty system. And our drivers in this category must have completed at least 8 rounds to be eligible for entering. And indeed, that's why you want to avoid the contact, keep the car on track, because every time you make a bit of contact, alternatively you go off circuit, you'll pick up an instant point, if not multiple instant points, and that will hurt you in trying to achieve this prize. And there's only going to be one winner in that prize pool for the instance, whether they're a AM or a Pro. It is going to be only one person who wins, and will be the one who has the lowest number by the end of it. Now, we talked a little bit about the prizes. We've said that there's going to be a lot of drivers competing, and it's only fair we now come to talk about our drivers. Well, we have 2 classes of driver. We have our pros and our AMs. And to just give you an idea of how they've been separated, why we've got certain drivers classified as pros versus those as AMs, it's been done primarily based on drivers' iRating, whereby this series is seen as a series that enables drivers of all skill levels to compete, bar major esports drivers. So as a result, we have got an iRating cap here, the iRating system being used to determine your ranking within the iRacing sphere of races. It is the case that anybody with an iRating above 5,000 was not eligible to enter in this series, whether as a pro or an AM. They could not enter because they are considered to be at too high a level to be competed in this series. Therefore, we're to keep the field as close as possible, and therefore our pros have iRatings between 2,500 and 5,000. And you can see here we have 11 entrants in this category. We have the number 9 driver there, Jerome Bajulaz, who is joining the MPRL series for the first time this year, and we're looking forward to seeing how he gets on. We also have the returnee there, the number 10 driver of Henry Morse, much like the 14 driver of Rocker Avath. Daniel Downing, John Wilding, and Austin Farr all making returns as well, alongside number 69 driver of Tanner Dibble. Jordan Butler will be back in the number 72 machine once again. John Nalzon in the 77, Sam Van Olsten in the 92, and you can see there the number 99 driver, Edwin Onofre, a name that many of you will recall from the TCR series. He was, of course, our AM champion, and it is the case now he is back in the Pro class. His iRating has considerably improved since the TCR series, and now he is in the Pro class, and we've taken his racing up to a whole new level. And if you want to be able to distinguish between the pros and the AMs, they will be distinguished on screen by a green categorization on the time board. We'll talk more about that visually later, but also you'll notice that all their driver, or their door numbers we should say, are between 1 and 99. They are being kept within single or double digits, whereas as we come over to our AMs, who are all distinguished by having door numbers between 200 and 299, you can see here we have a number of returnees within our 12 AM entrants, including, but not limited to, Jermaine Warren, Stefan Chalafu and Fernando Takahashi. We've also got their Craig Parks in the 225 machine, and it'll be Mark Senegal, who returns for a full season here in the 227 car after taking part midway through the TCR series last time out. Roger Ganesh there as well in the 229 car. We also do have Duncan Ray's Albert Brand, both of them returning, and we have the introduction of the newcomer Kevin B. Smith, or as he likes to be known as Kenny B, and he will be in the 257 car. We've also got Justin Braggan, Lee Porter and Rodney Felker, and indeed good luck to all of our drivers, many of them good friends down in the paddock and outside of racing, but on the circuit you can imagine they'll try to be gentlemen, but they'll also be quite intense. Well, we come from our drivers then to the circuit itself, and where are we today? Well, we are in Sao Paulo, Brazil, at the circuit known in full as the Autodromo José Carlos Pache, also known as Interlagos in short. This circuit, as seen from the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com, is a circuit consisting of a grand total of 15 corners, and this track could be considered to be one of those circuits which will test everything about your chosen car when you take your car around there. And the fact that the opening sector, effectively the opening four corners, are very heavily focused on what is the run of straight line speed, and also heavy braking, starting off the heavy braking zone down the start finish straight into the center S, into turn 1, that rolls through turn number 2, and that's all about direction change going through turns 1, 2 and 3, and in the rollout through turns 1, 2 and 3, then we do have the run down the Reproposta straight, the run from 3 to 4. Then we go into the second sector, or the second portion of the lap, where it's all about technical handling, whether it be turns 4 and 5, the high speed run through the left-handers, all the way out through the very tricky 6-7 combination there, the uphill right-hander, which is about how the car reacts to a change in road camber and road elevation, and then we do have the slowest portion of the circuit, running from turn 8 all the way through to turn 10, where we have two very nasty hairpins, before we have the run out of Magulo at turn number 11 into the final sector, which starts off with Juncal Corner at turn number 12, and it's all about getting the best possible exit before using the grunt uphill through turns 13 through to 15 to complete the lap. And that is why Interlagos is a test of every aspect of a car, and we'll ride on board with some of our drives in the qualifying session to give you a real perspective of what it's like to do a lap around the Brazilian circuit in the iRacing simulator. Now, as for our rules, of course, without rules we cannot go racing. It is the case that this will be a fixed setup series with our drivers running the iRacing baseline setup for all races. That means the only thing they are allowed to change on the car is the brake bias, as I understand. They're not allowed to change anything else about the car, only the brake bias, and car fuel loads will be restricted in each of the races, and today it is the case that the fuel loads have been restricted to 50% for the opening round. I think the target is going to be 32% for most of the rounds, but today it's 50% to make sure all cars can make it to the end of the sprint race unscathed in terms of fuel capacity. Otherwise they'd be coming into the pits to take on fuel, whereas other cars would not, and that would be a little bit unfair given the intent of the race is meant to be a sprint. Qualifying wise, the session will be broken into two equal halves. The first half will be for AM drives, the second half for Pro drives, and over the 15-minute qualifying session, you'll see around the 7.5-minute mark, we will get that transition over. And in terms of the sprint race itself, the race will start under manual double-file rolling start, with the formation being held up to the start-finish line, after which drivers may go racing. Each driver will have one fast repair available, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. And hopefully, we won't be seeing any drive-throughs today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough talk about rules and regulations. I know what you're all here for, and we head back to our live cameras here. And indeed, right now in this final warm-up session, we can see Edwin Onofre here for Ascension Racing, making his way a little bit wide there out to turn at number 4, just rolling slightly off the road surface, and we'll head in and back to the pits. Indeed, multiple drivers out there right now, putting those laps in, getting themselves all warmed up here. We've got John Lawson for Blue Flag Motorsports in the McLaren MP4 machinery. In fact, not the MP4, that's the GT3 car, my apologies. In the McLaren at 570 as he makes his way down the Reproposta here. And for those wondering what cars are available to our drivers, there are 4 cars they could choose from. There was the McLaren at 570. There was also the BMW M4 here, as being driven by Fernando Takahashi, the only BMW M4 driver, interestingly enough. We also have the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4, and we'll see a couple of those here. And one out on circuit right now is in the hands of Jerome Bajulas. And we also do have what is the Aston Martin V8 Advantage. And we do see, for example, we saw him earlier, and we look back to him, Edwin Offray here in the Aston Martin making his way around. Indeed, more GT4 cars coming to iRacing in the near future. We do believe that the Mercedes AMG GT4 is on its way in a future season, and how that's going to be integrated into this series, I do think it'll probably be integrated much like the Hyundai Veloster from the TCR series, whereby drivers will be permitted to make the switch, but they'll only be able to either change from their current car to the new car, or alternatively stay with their current car. And there's no swap backsies if they don't like what they've changed to. And well, we will have to wait and see how it all plays out in practice. Of course, that'll be a conundrum for our drivers to deal with, as Vianofre they're losing the rear of the car coming out of turn number 7. And catching it very nicely, a bit of rallycross there and a bit of drifting as well, multidiscipline it would seem, as he misses turn number 8 and comes through 9. But indeed, all of our drivers now set, and as we look to the chats here, we do say hello in the Twitch chat to GT Eddie and also to Max LP80, and in the YouTube chat we say hello to Duncan Murray. And I hope you're all doing well, and to those of you tuning in, I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic weekend so far. And indeed, if you haven't been enjoying fantastic motorsport racing action over the course of this weekend so far with the Indy 500, also the Monaco F1 Grand Prix, just to name 2, and we also talked about the Nürburgring 24 hours recently, where you've got the brilliant sim racing action here at Interlagos to look forward to. And indeed, we're expecting it to be very close as all of our drivers start to make their way out of the pit lane here, and we do see Kenny B. Smith coming on out in very short order. And as he does, coming out the pit lane, it's the case that the debutant here, the privateer, we'll be looking forward to seeing how he gets on in the M class. And to be fair, it can be a little bit daunting for a newcomer, particularly when you're racing in a league with a lot of established names, whereby you're one of only a couple of newcomers, and you really got to try and find your way in amongst all the existing drivers. But to be fair, the middle of the pack racing league community, very open to newcomers. They don't shy away from welcoming newcomers with open arms, but he may just feel as though he's a little bit outside the inner circle today, and he's got to try and break his way into the circle. And the best way to do so, have a brilliant debut race in the season and see what you can deliver over the course of the proceedings. And as he makes his way up towards turn 6 and 7, we will be watching Kenny with interest as he makes his way on around. Now, as he does, we can see right now it's only our AM drivers who make their way out onto circuit, of course, what the first 7.5 minutes of this 15-minute session being dedicated to them. So do expect that it's going to be a little bit of a quiet circuit, but that gives all of our drivers ample opportunity to space out, to find area on track, and whether they want to run slipstream another driver or not, that's their decision. Typically, it is a good idea, particularly for your banker lap, to run in clear air and just get a good lap on the board. As we see here, Jermaine Warren is going to be making his way into Juncal Corner very shortly, and we'll be riding on board with him as he goes past turn 15 for the purposes of the opening flying lap of his qualifying session and this session as a whole. Now, we are expecting, given the circuit here has a very varied combination of corners and sections, we're not expecting any car in particular to be the strongest, but we'll wait and see how it plays out. As we ride on board here then with Jermaine Moore as he comes to the timeline to take us into the opening flying lap in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4. So breaking down into turn 1, they're breaking at about the 55-metre mark and rolling the car on the trail, breaking into turn 1, taking a lot of curve there before flicking into the centre S of turn number 2, rolling off the curves and rolling onto the curve of turn number 3 and using that to pull the car around the curve of the Soul as he now makes his way down to the Reposter. A nice opening 3 corners there for Jermaine Warren, and now making his way all the way up to turn number 4 into the braking zone, breaking that 100-metre board, coming down the gearbox from 5th to 3rd, and as he does here, nicely flew through the corner, does not go too wide there, doesn't use too much exit curve, and through turn 5 completely flat out, and now up into the uphill section here, turn 6 and 7, a very tricky double right. Him dab the brakes, come down a gear to 4th. Would he come down a 3rd as he tries to connect it? He does indeed. A nice connection, and up shifts back to 4th, interestingly, as he gets on the throttle. So using the downshift to rotate the car, and as he makes his way through turn 8, the second gear hairpin, now rolling through turn number 9. It's all about patience here in 3rd gear as he gets ready to see the exit, power down, and now makes his way up towards turn number 10. Braking into the slowest corner of the circuit, staying in 2nd now, and as he exits out, I was going to say staying in 3rd, but he made his way down to 2nd, now going down through turn number 11, flat out through this left hand, the temperature in the tyres means he can really push, now going down to Juncal Corner here, using all the runoff area to open up the apex, and as he exits out, now it's a long charge all the way to the timeline. It's been a very smooth lap from Jermaine Warren, to be fair, and as he comes up through here, what's it going to be to set the reference time for the AM qualifying session, as we just hear that wonderful grunt of the V8. hanging the car as far to the left as he dares in order to be able to shorten the run to the timeline, and it's a 1:41.2 for his troubles as he makes his way now in to turn number 1 once again. And we can see that so far everybody else coming in a little bit behind in terms of lap time, although we do have Roger Ganesh here a long way back as he makes his way on through in the McLaren. And as he heads to the timeline, what's it going to be for Ganesh? Can the McLaren get up there? It can indeed, a 41.974. And a little bit further back we do have, I believe that's Craig Parks, and also Lee Porter's just crossed the line in the McLaren. He's gone P3 as Lee Porter, and Craig Parks here making his way across the line, P2 of 41.741, half a second off of Jermaine Warren. Well, that is quite the delta, as we do see Mark Senegal here making his way on through, staying as far to the left as he dares. They're almost hitting the tyres on the way into the pit lane, and Mark Senegal, the slice lap recorded so far, a 43.518. That's a whole second off of Smith, but we'll wait to see what he's able to do later on this session. They don't have too long, to be fair, and now we can see Fernando Takahashi in the bit of the unicorn machine, the BMW M4, and the reason we call it the unicorn because he's the only one of them out on circuit, indeed registered in this series to date, and as he makes his way across the line, only P6 and a 42.498, and well, I think Takahashi's got a lot to do as he goes very deep into turn 1, and well, this next lap I think it's going to be one where he's just going to use it to get the temperature back up in the tyres even more so, and then see what he can deliver come his third lap around here, because that lap is going to be very heavily compromised. But the one driver who's yet to put a lap on the board is Rodney Felker as he makes his way on through in the very distinctive yellow Aston Martin V8 Advantage, and as he makes his way up into turn number 12. If you're wondering, ladies and gentlemen, why you'll see on the interior of the car and on the outside of the cars that it's listed as AMR Vantage rather than Aston Martin Vantage. AMR stands for Aston Martin Race, and of course the division of Aston Martin dedicated to motorsport, and so we would technically really call it the AMR Vantage V8 if we wanted to be scientific. But as he makes his way to the timeline here, Felker, what's it going to be for his opening lap? He hasn't gone purple anywhere, but he's definitely on a personal set of best, and that's P9 on a 44.438. He's a whole second down on Mark Senegal as our drivers continue to put those laps in. And well, now we see Craig Parks here coming to the timeline very shortly. Now you're probably wondering at this point as well, is there a particular car that our drivers should go for? Well, we do know the BMW M4 is considered to be a little bit off the pace in the GT4 class, particularly for sprint races by comparison with its peers. However, it's a very comfortable car to drive, and that can be beneficial in longer endurance races, and particularly in our feature races it may come to the foray. But we have, with the recent introduction of the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage, it is the case that we have seen quite the competition between the Aston Martin and also the McLaren. So we will wait and see how it plays out in practice, but it does seem as though those two are up there. But don't count out the Porsche. We don't have any Porsche 718 Cayman GT4s in what is the AM class, but in the Pro class you'll get to see them, and they will be very powerful through the handling sections. A little bit less so on the straights. That's when the McLaren has a bit of a balance in terms of it's quite good through the corners, not as strong as the Porsche, but it does have quite a bit of straight line speed as well, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out with regards to the 570 versus the Porsche 718 in the Pro class in due order. But right now Craig Parks looking very smooth in the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machinery, and that is another consideration as well. The McLaren and also the Porsche mid-engine rear-wheel drive in terms of drivetrain. Meanwhile, the Aston Martin and the BMW front-engine rear-wheel drive, and that means the Aston Martin and BMW will be more prone to understeer, and particularly in the GT4 class, it is the case that will be more prevalent because remember there's less error on these cars than you would see in a GT3 machine. These are road cars that have effectively been adapted for racing on circuit with an enlarged spoiler, some minor aerodynamic alterations, but they can't put major aerodynamic body kits on the car per se. And you can imagine actually in a McLaren at 570 driving around on the street, you take that rear spoiler off and you've got the road legal car effectively as he makes his way around through turns 14 and 15 here. And what will Craig Parks be able to do? He's not going to have any more laps on the board, but before he gets line, we see Lee Porter comes across, and I think Lee Porter's just technically crept across with about half a second to spare, but he's going to park it up. He's decided enough's enough, and as we see Craig Parks coming to the line here, he goes P3 in a 41.618, but right now it's still more laps coming in. And we can see Mark Senegal here coming across. He's currently P8 in class. He crosses the line. He does not improve. What about elsewhere on circuit? We've got Fernando Takahashi here, the BMW M4 driver coming to the line. This will be his final flying lap of the session. He comes on through, and as he does, well, he's going to peel into the pits. He's not happy with this lap at all, and Takahashi at P6 at best. We do still have a couple of drivers going on around, and our current pole sitter in the AM class, Jermaine Warren, he is on a lap. He has improved to a degree here, but he's not going purple anywhere, it should be said. He has set a personal best in the opening subsector, and also subsector 3 uses a lot of runoff space there. at turn number 12, which, to be fair, according to the iRacing track limits, you are legally allowed to do, and I believe our drivers have been given permission to use that runoff area to a degree at Junkow Corner. But as he rolls on through here, we'll wait to see how Jermaine Warren concludes the session. I'm sure he's going to be taking pole position at this rate. The only other driver is Smith. Well, Warren into the pits. He's decided he's done enough. Now, what about Kenny Smith? Can he, on his debut, improve higher than P7 as he makes his way on through here? Well, will he be peeling into the pit lane? I think he is going to peel in, unless I'm mistaken. And yes, he does coming in, so he's decided no, he's not on a better lap. So that is the AM qualifying session complete. It's Jermaine Warren on pole there. But now we look to our pros, and oh goodness me, I'm not sure what's happened to Jerome Bajulas here, but he's off circuit, and well, that is a bit of a disaster for the Porsche driver. And now we do a look around, and we've got Sam Van Holst here making his way through turn 11. But meanwhile, it is Austin Farr who is coming up through turn number 13, and he will be the first of our pro GT4 drivers to be set in a lap. And let's ride on board here with Austin Farr as he comes on through, and we'll give you the perspective of a lap here from a pro driver and see if we can decipher anything different compared to Jermaine Warren's lap. He's coming across the timeline here, both of them the Aston Martin, of course, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, breaking that 50-metre board, coming all the way down the gearbox in third gear, rolling through, and the car actually rolling away from him a little bit there, a little bit of understeer mid-apex, and the car not wanting to turn through, and that's cost him quite deep. You can actually see he's fighting with the steering wheel here through turn number 3 in order to get the car to settle down. That weight transfer very pronounced in these GT4s, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 4 here, up in 5th gear, up into 6th, and now breaking down the gearbox, coming all the way down to 3rd gear. Nice run through turn number 4, uses the full width of the track there. We put 2 wheels just beyond the exit curve, which you're allowed to do. Of course, got to be careful how wide you go there, because otherwise you get pulled off circuits. It's a downhill drop off the circuit. Now going up into turn 6 here, 4th gear. Will we see him drop to 3rd briefly, much like some of his peers? No, he stays in 4th. In fact, he avoids the downshift, and as he makes his way into turn number 8, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, and rolling on through into turn number 9 now. And as he does, keeps it nice and high in the apex curve there, gripping the left-hand tyre into the road surface before making his way up into turn number 10, breaking down the gearbox now, staying in 3rd. Will he use 2nd on exit? No, interestingly enough, deciding to stay in 3rd, and perhaps that's the secret of the Aston Martin. 3rd gear is where you want to be, not 2nd gear through these low-speed corners. And as he makes his way into Junkow Corner now, going through turn number 12, literally chucking the car in 3rd gear. That very aggressive run, but to be fair, full of bravery as he now makes his way up the hill. And as he does here, this is looking a very impressive lap, but the drivers behind him all setting personal best of their own. And as he makes his way all the way through Austin Farr, what will it be for the first flying lap of this pro session? Where he comes to the timing line in the Goldwing Motorsports Pro machine. And as he comes across, it's going to be a 41.774. That puts him P4 overall, and just behind in there, Edwin Onofre going into P6 overall on a 41.8. As a result, just a 10th of a second behind Austin Farr. What about our other drivers though? Well, we can see here John Lauzon coming to the timeline. And he looks pretty happy with that lap. As we see Bajulas coming across, and to be fair, well, Bajulas with that off, and well, he's absolutely bounced back immediately. And we can see here it's the case that Lauzon only at P9 overall, but Jerome Bajulas there, I must say, really after an off, which we thought might have knocked his confidence a little bit on his debut. The pro driver here really showing why he's in that pro category already. That is an absolutely astonishing lap with a 41.31, and well, given that it's the first lap he's done, he has got a bit of a margin to close down versus where's the rest of the drivers out there. Well, Jermaine Warren in particular a 10th, but I don't think it's going to take long before he finds that 10th of a second and then puts himself in the overall pole. We will wait and see, but Bajulas right now looking very good indeed as he rolls on through. Now, as he does, Jerome Bajulas here looking smart, looking sensible for the time being, coming in to turn number 8, and that Porsche really hooked up around through sector 2 in particular. That is the F1 sector, of course, iRacing using the sub-sector format, of which there are 5, so apologies for any confusion there, but really the run through turns 8 through to 10, and as he makes his way through the right-hander here at turn number 10, you can see, in fact, how much he's gaining on the driver in front of him, and that is Sam Van Holst, who he's really catching up to. As we say hello to Phil Deadly at GT in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, Phil. But right now, we're looking still at Bajulas as he comes on through here. And, well, what will it be on his second time round on a flying lap with only 2 minutes this qualifying session to go? He will have one more lap at his disposal by the time he gets to the timing line. And this is where the Porsche may suffer a little bit compared to the Aston Martin in particular on the long run down the back straight and also on the start-finish straight. But in the end, as he comes to the line, it's looking good. He crosses the line. And as he does, well, it's not an improvement. But we ride on board now with the Porsche driver to give you a flavour of what it's like to put in a lap in the Porsche 718 Cayman as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2 there through the centre S's, and you can see there the rotation that's natural to the car with the engine being behind the tyre just gives him that ability to turn through turn 1 much more aggressively, but he just about keeps it on track there. I think that was right on the limit of what's acceptable in terms of track limits coming out to turn number 3, and now makes his way down into turn 4 here, and as Jules comes on through again, we'll see that initial rotation and braking, and as he rolls his way down through turn number 5, here's the case that Jules looking very good so far. Now, with a little bit of experience, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you're driving one of these machines for real. I had the chance to drive a Porsche Cayman 718 around what was Thruxton Motorsport Circuit. Under braking, when you turn into a corner, you can really feel the weight of the engine behind you lift up under braking, and as you turn in, that weight transitions around very rapidly. And that's the challenge that Jules faces here, is the fact that he needs to make sure he's ready to not put too much steering in, but let the car come around naturally, whereas the peers around him, particularly Aston Martins, have to fight to get the nose to bite into the apex. But again, that's how Balance Performance balances things out, in the fact that the mid-engine rear drive cars will naturally start to suffer a little bit more in the straights and in those acceleration zones. But as we do see here, Jules making his way out to turn number 12, he's not suffering right now. He's really catching up to the fact of what is also in front of him. I think he might even have a bit of a distant toe here. Now, will he get another lap in come the end of it? Not 100% sure. As he comes on through, I think there was in fact a little bit of a hit to the rev limiter there, and he might be using that to give himself some space. He will get one more lap in here, so a good number of our pros will find one more lap out, and so but Jules goes overall pole, however, 41.125, and that is only 800ths faster than Jermaine Warren, and everybody has gone on to one more lap as we see John Lowes on the last driver to go onto that lap, with the checker flag now waving with the 15 minutes complete. And what we can see there, Duncan Ray saying the Goldwing gang in action, and indeed there's a lot of members of the Goldwing Motorsports team racing here today and in this series, and you're going to see plenty of them out on circuit. But right now, speaking of out on circuit, we can see one of the Goldwing Motorsports drivers of what is Austin Farr there, right tucked in behind Edwin Onofre, and well, Onofre's really struggled in the opening 2 subsectors, and I think it might be the case that Austin Farr here capitalising on a little bit of toe as he makes his way through turn number 9. Now the problem, of course, is running in that toe or the dirty air of Onofre as he comes through the handing section of the circuit. He will feel that pinch to the front end of the car, and you can see already he's actually down on his personal best in subsector 3, and that's really the run coming out of what is turn number 6 all the way through to turn number 9. And now as he makes his way into Junção, he's down again, but he will benefit now from the toe in the exit out of Junção corner at 12 all the way to the timeline. Will this be enough to move Austin Farr a bit further up the order and get himself onto that front row, given that Jermaine Warren, the AM driver, is still P2 overall, and that should not be forgotten about. That is a absolutely sensational season opening performance. Well, we will wait and see. Now Onofre comes to the line. Will he be able to improve from P7 overall? He moves to P4 overall. Austin Farr does not improve. What about Jerome Bajulas here as he makes his way on through to the timeline? Well, he's not improving. I think this is going to be appealing to the pit. Well, it's not an improvement at all unless he pulls out magic in the final sector. But John Lauzon does look as though he's on an improving lap here. And in the end, he goes P3. So it is the case. He takes P2 in the Pro Class in qualifying. It is Bajulas who takes that pole position in the Pro Class. But Jermaine Warren, really the story of this qualifying session, taking P2 in qualifying overall. And that is pole position for Jermaine Warren from MOP Racing. He will be on that front row alongside Bajulas, and the AM driver will have 3 pros between himself and Duncan Moraes, who has taken second place in the GT3 AM qualification. Now that is a story to tell, and Jermaine Warren at this point I think will be thinking to himself, that's a very nicely well done job in qualifying here in Interlagos. But now we wait for the transition over to the race and the formation of that grid, which should be any moment now, ladies and gentlemen, probably about 30 seconds away. And there we go. We get the transition to the formation of the grid, and let's take you through that grid for the purposes of our season opening race. So in the end, well, in fact, my apologies, we just had an update here, and it is the case that Jerome Bajulas' fastest lap, the one where we saw him run wide out of turn 3, that was disallowed post-qualifying, and therefore it is Jermaine Warren on his debut, the AM driver, taking pole position with a 41.2, and well, that is history in the making there for the middle of the pack racing league. And the fact that's the first time this year we have seen, I think the first time in all history, we have seen an AM driver out-qualify the pro field. But Jermaine Warren on pole for MOP Racing with Jerome Bajulas alongside him for the GT4 pro pole, what is a 10th down. Austin Farr and Edwin Offred there line up on your second row for Goldwing Motorsports and Ascension Racing, with Goldwing Motorsports' Duncan Rays taking P5 overall, P2 in the GT4. I keep saying GT3, I'll get it out of my tongue eventually, ladies and gentlemen, but he takes that P2 for the AM class, and alongside him is his rival Craig Parks for Motus Racing. John Lauzon lines up P7 with Lee Porter alongside P8. They make up the 4th row, with Roger Ganesh from Sunday GT Turtles at P9, and he is joined on the 5th row by Sam Van from Goldwing Motorsports. Behind them is Fernando Takahashi and Kenny B. Smith. They make up your 6th row. Kenny B. Smith on his debut qualifying P12, and there is Mark Senegal and Rodney Velker lined up on row number 7. And behind them, and I'm not 100% sure if they are participating in this race, we will have to wait and see. We will have Jason Landry and John Wilding lining up on what is the 8th row, P15 and P16 respectively, and Jordan Butler, if he does take to the grid, will line up P17 by his lonesome on row number 9. And this, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is the season opener of the GT4 Championship, as brought to you by Middle of the Pack Racing League, and very shortly we'll be getting underway for the purposes of what is race number 1 of the calendar. We will have a short formation lap, and well, as we can see here, the grid are now forming up. The grid is formed. It is time for us to go racing, and well, very shortly it will be to Jermaine Warren to start pulling away from what is the front of the field and taking us all the way around through the second half of the lap to the start finish line. Remember, we go at the start finish line, not on the green according to iRacing, but Jermaine Warren has to hold the formation up to the start finish line. So as soon as he crosses it, he can go racing here, as all the field do peel off behind him. As they all make the way through now, it is definitely going to look very tight and close, with 16 drivers taken to the circuit. Jason Landry unable to make it to the circuit, and therefore it does look as though we will have Jordan Butler starting right at the back, with John Wilding alongside him in what is that 8th row, P15. But as all the drivers make the way on through at this point, you can see quite a fast short formation lap here. Jermaine Warren not wasting any time. There is a speed limit he does have to run to, and I do believe the speed limit in the rule charter was 60 miles an hour, but I think it may be the case he's going a little bit faster here because of the rate at which the automated safety car is going at. So that may be something of a little bit of contention, which has to be discussed with the administrators after this round. So the safety car is going quite fast here today, but as they all make the way out of West Junkow corner very shortly, you can see now all of our drivers coming together on that blimp camera. Wonderful shot there, all 16 cars, and as they all now start to make the way up the hill, it will be the case the safety car will peel on him very shortly, and it will be to MOP Racing's Jermaine Warren to take us away for 20 minutes of racing in this season opener. And it's lights out and away we go for the season opening race of the GT4 Championship, as Jermaine Warren holds the lead coming down to turn 1. But already Edwin and Offrey on the outside and under some pressure from Duncan Rays, who tries to look up the inside there, as meanwhile Jerome Bajulaz and Austin Farr battling side by side for the centre assist, and Bajulaz loses the rear there on cold tyres coming out of the corner, and as a result the racing continues with him at the back of the field as they all make the way out to turn number 3 and down the Repro Posta here. But as they do, the top 2 breaking away already, but Edwin Offrey coming back strong here, and he's got Duncan Rays really hugging onto the rear of him right now, and the pro driver trying to run away from one of his rivals in the previous season of the TCR Championship, as John Lauzon there holds the inside, and we've got Edwin Offrey going wide. They're coming out of what's turn 4 and with a spin, but as they all come rolling up the hill, you can see, oh my goodness, it looks as though we've almost got 4 wide here. Oh goodness me, it's all kicked off with the fact we've got 2 McLarens off the road, and Lee Porter being knocked for 6 there off circuit as well, with a wayward McLaren in the form of Craig Parks, and that was Jordan Butler, I do believe, who was involved in that contact as well, which definitely the case into turn 6. 4 does not go into 1, and they found that out the hard way by trying to make it a 4 wide situation. Well, it's a good thing they've probably got that out of their system on the season opening race, because you can imagine later on it would have hurt. As meanwhile John Lauzon losing the rear, there's a bit of a stack up with what is Roger Ganesh, also Sam Bernals, but they've all made it through with some contact, but the Blue Flag Motorsports try has to hold the brakes on as everybody else comes on through here. But that is a shock to the system and not a welcome one, and so many drivers here on this opening lap have been in the wars, there's no doubt about that. I can tell you one driver right now who has not been in the wars and he's gained massively as a result of it. Roger Ganesh here, the Sunday GT Turtles driver, he finds himself now P5 overall. That is P3 in the AM class. He makes his way down towards the end of lap number 1 in a very dramatic opening lap. So after one lap, it is Jermaine Warren leading the GT3 AM driver ahead of Austin Farr leading the GT3 Pro class in P2. Duncan Moraes coming over in P3, followed by what is Sam Bernal's P4. Then we have Roger Ganesh in P5, followed by Fernando Takahashi P6, Mark Sinegal P7, given pursuit with Kenny B. Smith in P8. And it looks so here, Fernando Takahashi already under pressure from both Senegal and Smith as they make the way on through. And they come rolling down towards the Reciprocosta straight. Behind them, John Wilding, followed by John Butler there in P10. Then it's Rodney Felker P11, Edwin Offer at P12 and trying to recover this race. Jerome Bajulas behind him P13. Then we've got Craig Parks, Lee Porter a little bit further back, and then John Lauzon right at the back of the field here in P16 and trying to catch on up. But meanwhile, Mark Senegal's had an off there at turn number 4, and I believe he's run a bit wide. But meanwhile, speaking of running wide, it's the case he won't want to run wide right now, and that's Kenny Smith as they make their way up into turn 6. He'll try and go around the outside, but he can't get the momentum. And Fernando Takahashi under huge pressure here in the BMW M4 versus the Aston Martin behind him. As you can see, just behind them, John Wilding trying to find his way on through. And the Porsche driver, John Wilding, he did not take to the qualifying session that he started from the back, and he's already up 8 places. He started from the back of the field, and the Pro driver has gained tremendously, and we're not even 5 minutes into this race yet. And as they make their way through turn number 10, you can see how Fernando Takahashi really able to exploit the stability of the BMW M4 as he makes his way out of these hairpin style corners and making his way up towards turn number 12. It is the case that Takahashi right now really keeping Kenny Smith at bay, but now as they make their way up onto the start finish straight, you can see already just the BMW struggling for torque up the hill, and that's where the BMW really lacks the grunt versus the Aston Martin. They make the way on through. And as they do, as they make their way all the way down towards turn number 1, you can see it's really under pressure now as Austin Farr has taken the lead of Jermaine Warren down into turn number 1. But we focus here on Fernando Takahashi, goes defensive versus Kenny Smith, and Kenny Smith right now has got to worry about Jordan Butler as they make their way through the corner, and Smith's got a big deep, but there's contact between the two of them there. Oh, goodness me, and well, contact's not too far away at the moment, and well, the two of them come together. I think Kenny Smith did not expect that there was going to be Jordan Butler alongside him coming down through turns 1 and 2, but in the end the DNA Racing driver went for it, and I think he will feel as though he was the one who was inconvenienced and that Smith needed to be more aware of his surroundings, but that's the stewards to deal with. I can tell you right now, we do have Rodney Felk and Craig Parks here battling down into turn number 4, and as they roll along down into the corner, Rodney Felk is staying wide there on the off racing line and not having any grip to play with, and I think there's quite a bit of damage to that Aston Martin by the looks of things, so it does not look as though it wants to turn in comfortably whatsoever as he makes his way up towards 6 and 7. As he makes his way into the corners, we do look from him to a little bit further. Oh, goodness me, I was going to look a little bit further up the road, and it's come to us, and that's Craig Parks here from Motors Racing, who's had a very difficult run through turn 6 and 7. It looks like the rear's come loose on him, and well, he's now back down to P15 overall. That's P8 in class. We look from him to John Wilding right now, and it is the case the DNA Racing Porsche 718 Pro driver here under a lot of pressure from the Pro debutant of what it is Bajulas there as they made their way through turn 11. You can see Bajulas literally hugging the rear of Wilding left, right, and centre. They're almost making a little bit of a tap to the rear and through turn number 11, and as they make their way up through turn number 12 right now through Juncal corner, it is the case that Wilding really under pressure here, and well, it's the case of Nofre not too far back, but we are right on board with Bajulas here as he tries to go on the offensive for Blue Flag Motorsports. Now, where will he go for this potential move? That will be the big question. I think for Bajulas, it's going to be one of those situations we just need to be patient here. He's got a lot of time. It's a 20-minute race. It is a short period of time, but he's going to look up the inside already. He's going for it here, and well, Wilding's giving him the space, but as they make the way on down, he's given him so much space that Bajulas has literally said, thank you for the place. I'm off. I'll leave you to it to defend versus Onofre, and Onofre there is now on the offensive. I think Wilding, in fact, went very deep on the brakes into turn number 1. It took him a while to hook the car back into turn number 2, and it's cost him dearly. You can see the Aston Martin and Onofre now really coming from the move on the inside into turn number 4. It'll be a battle on the brakes, and in terms of the brakes, the Porsche has got the stronger brakes of the two, but Wilding really struggling to get that Porsche to turn through the corners right now. He just cannot get it to turn in, and it looks like Onofre is going to have to run up the hill, and we do know the Aston Martin Wins V8 engine has got a lot of grunt uphill on those straights, but it is the case he's just able to get the move done around the outside into 6-7, and the Ascension Racing driver now making his way in pursuit of Bajulas. And to be fair, if he can close up to Bajulas and take him, that would be P3 on on the podium in the GT3 Pro class, but Van Olst and Austin Farr a long way up the road by comparison and in a very comfortable place. But as our drivers continue to make the way on through here, it is the case we are only 6.5 minutes in and we have already seen quite a few incidents, quite a few overtakes as well, and now it's the case that the race is settling down to a degree. We do have some close runners on circuit, such as Jerome Pajulas here, chasing after Mark Senegal, but not really too many close battles for position within class right now. Most of our close runners, our potential battles, are going to be for track position between two classes. And we should point out, no additional points up for grabs if you do, as say, a GT3 AM driver manage to beat a GT3 Pro driver. There's just a little bit of pride on the line. But as we can see here, Pajulas wanting to get past Senegal as soon as possible as he gives pursuit. And we're hearing that John Wilding's had a major off towards the end of his current lap. He's dropped all the way down to P15. As meanwhile, I do believe going a bit slow here, Rodney Velker, and I think that is an automated slowdown penalty for track limit. I presume that's at Chinsau corner. But as he makes his way down into turn number 1, he's lost momentum here as Velker is down to P7 in class, P13 overall. But as he, oh goodness me, into the wall there at turn number 2, that Aston Martin, I think something has broken, and indeed he's into the pits, he's jumped to the pits, and they're going to have to do a lot of work on that Aston Martin. As meanwhile we look from further down the order to the front of the order, and here is Austin Farr from Goldwing Motorsports, who right now is having quite the comfortable race. He got ahead of Jermaine Warren in the run down towards turn 1 on lap number 4, and as he makes his way now up into turn number 10, it is the case that the Goldwing Motorsports driver here holding firm, but Jermaine Warren keeping him honest, to be fair. But at the same time, I think for Warren, it's one of those cases whereby I don't think he's going to push too hard to try and beat the Pro driver. He'd love to take the win overall as an AM driver, I'm sure of that. In his heart, he would love to do it, but his brain's probably saying to him, don't be silly. Everybody's dropping it. Don't be one to drop it on circuit as well. By dropping it, I mean, of course, making mistakes to be involved in incidents. And when you are an AM driver with an advantage right now, effectively of what is 8 seconds over your main rival, it was not 8 seconds, 5 seconds last time, screen's updated there. It is the case you do not want to do anything silly. As we're hearing that Rodney Velker is still having work done on the car, and a bit further down the road, Sam Van Olst has had an off track, and as a result, he's actually ceded what was at the time P4 overall to Roger Ganesh. And now we've got two AM drivers giving pursuit to Jermaine Warren, and we'll have to wait and see whether they are able to catch up in due course. But meanwhile, they'll make their way through. Roger Ganesh here looking very smooth for Sunday GT Turtles, running P4 overall. That's P3 in the AM class as he makes his way through turn number 3 and down towards turn number 4 in short order. And as he comes charging on down here, looking very smooth at this time as he continues to press on, heading into left-hander here. Does look as though Ganesh pressing on all the same and seeing what he can do as he makes his way through the left-hand here of turn number 4. As he heads up the hill towards turns 5 and 6, up towards turns 6 and 7 now, it is the case with everybody settling down. We do look a bit further down to Edwin Offra here, and what will be going through his mind, of course, given the fact he was racing in the AM class in the TCR Championship earlier this year, now racing in the Pros. Well, we did see he made that mistake on the opening lap then. Perhaps it's a little bit of the occasion, a little bit of nervous excitement of the occasion hitting him slightly, but to be fair, he needs to settle in, and these cars very different from the touring car racing machines that we saw earlier this year, with the fact that the touring car machines all front engine, front wheel drive, so it is the case that the front wheels do all the hard work, whereas in these machines the power is deployed through the rear wheels, and therefore it's a little bit of a different story. Plus also not all cars have got the engine mounted in the front, and that means that the balance of the car is different. And how you approach corners is different. Front engine, front wheel drive cars, you normally want to attack the corner apex a lot more aggressively, point the car in. And speaking of pointing the car in, on offer they're getting very close to the rear of Senegal as they made their way for Junkao corner. He's actually had to back it off a little bit there. I think there was a little bit of a tap to the back of Senegal's car, and as he rolls on through here, and do keep in mind as well, it was the case that Onofre was the driver who in the end, if I remember correctly, picked up the award for the least number of incidents accrued over the course of the TCR season. Well, so far he might have a few instant points on the board. He won't want to add that, 'cause normally he was one of the most, what was reserved and instant free drivers of all the pack in the TCR season, but it has not been the start he wanted. But right now running P9, that's P4 in class, he will see that Pajulas is only what is 2.5 seconds up the road, and he will look to try and close up as soon as he possibly can. But indeed it is one of those cases, but by transitioning class here, he is going to, it's in a way a little bit of a reality check, not to say he was full of himself or anything along those lines, but it's one of those scenarios whereby when you take a step up, normally your opening couple of races, you've got to find out where you lie within your respective class, and then the hard work and the graft comes in, and you see how much you can improve. And indeed, Onofre right now, I think after a difficult start to this race, starting to build that momentum up quite strongly. But as we look from him to Austin Farr here, it is the case that our pro leader and our overall leader, he's not dispatching Jermaine Warren anytime soon. And as they make the way down through turn number 11, it is the case the MOP racing driver here staying right there with him. But, well, speaking of staying right there with somebody, it is the case that Sam Holst here right on the back of Roger Ganesh as they make the way down through turn number 11. I think Ganesh had a very bad run through turn number 10, and now as they make their way through turn number 12, will we see Van Holst go for the move into turn 1? Surely he must. Look how much momentum he's carrying up the hill as they make the way through, and I think Ganesh, they're being smart and pulling to the right-hand side of the road from his perspective, the left as they come through here, and well, you can see that Aston Martin has got the run in the drag race up the hill and now down towards the timing line, and I think Ganesh is simply going to tuck one in and say, right, you pull me up towards Duncan Moraes here, who's running in P3. Now as they make their way through, Ganesh holding that outside line here, and I think Van Holst will defend it, but at the same time be thinking that Ganesh is doing everything he can not to be battling up the inside. He would have gone up the inside, I think, if he wanted to go for it, but Van Holst at the same time being quite firm there to say to him, look, you're the AM driver, I'm the pro driver, leave me be and I'll leave you be. And you can see the gap already as they come out of turns 1 to 3 that Van Holst has pulled in a section of circuit where effectively we would expect the McLaren actually to be the car that catches rather than loses out time, and that is where Van Holst is able to now really get that message through to Ganesh. Let me pull you up to Moraes. Of course, not racing as part of the same team, but the Goldwing Motorsports driver here will be wanting to chase down Austin Farr, who is the best part of 11 seconds up the road from him, if not almost 12 seconds at this point in time. But meanwhile, trying to make some ground of his own here, trying to chase after P2 in the GT3 Pro, the GT3, goodness me, I keep saying GT3, I'll make sure not to keep saying GT3. In the GT4 Pro class, it is Bajulas here as he rolls his way through turn number 8, and as he does come on through at this point, it is the case he does have Takahashi ahead of him, and to be fair, Fernando Takahashi in that BMW M4, well, he's had quite a good run so far as we are now heading towards the final quarter, albeit with 6.5 minutes to go, and it is the case he's gained 5 places since the start of this race, and he's really come from through, and he had a very difficult qualifying session. But to be fair, we did talk about the BMW M4 not being the one-lap pace car in the GT4 class, but more the car that works best in the races, and so far Takahashi is demonstrating that absolutely brilliantly here as he seeds the ground on the inside through 15 very shortly to what is their Bajulas as they make their way through. They come through turn 14 there, and you see Bajulas slowly gaining that upper hand, but again, do keep him on that course, really does suffer on the straights, and Takahashi staying as wide as possible here in the BMW M4 to make sure he's going to be giving Bajulas every which way to take the place. They make the way down to turn number 1, and Takahashi cedes the ground. He knows he's not battling with the pro driver at the end of the day, so there's no point fighting with him as they make the way on around and down through the centre S and onto the Ref Proposta once again. As they come on through, it's the case that Mark Senegal is not too far behind here, as we do see the Sunday GT Turtles AM driver making his way down the Ref Proposta. He's got Edwin Onofre behind him, and as they make the way on down now with what is just over 5 minutes to go, it is the case the Sunday GT Turtles driver will be hoping that he can reel in Takahashi. And looking at the respective lap times between the two of them, on that last lap, Mark Senegal gained 7/10 of a second, but now we can see Onofre here looking to try and find his way past the AM driver. Does the pros, they go up into turn 6 and 7. Onofre is going to try and hold the outside line all the way through. Will he go for the cut back through 7 up into 8? Well, if he's going to do it, he's got the momentum, he's got that pendulum effect. But Senegal actually defends it quite firmly there, and as a result, well, Onofre is not going to find his way on through. And that will be a little bit of frustration there for Onofre. He will feel as though he should just be given the place and go up the road, but Senegal has other ideas, and now I think it will be the case that Onofre will come on through out of Juncal corner if he gets things hooked up very nicely as we ride on board here with the road driver as he tries to find his way up another track position up to P8 overall as they make the way into turn number 12. And as they do here, is the case the McLaren driver will get the McLaren actually got the better run there of Senegal. He got the better run out the corner compared to Onofre. Onofre really struggling in that dirty air of the McLaren to get the nose to settle on exit, and instead having to really fight the car through the corner apex. And as they make their way on towards another lap, you can see because he lost that run out the corner, he's too far back now to make an impact as they make the way down into turn 1 once again. And as the Ascension Racing driver here continues to pursue, well, you can see the difference between the two. Senegal goes a bit deep into the corner, and well, in the end, Senegal, I think, realises or recognises that there's no point fighting because it's only cost us both time, and he yields. He makes it very clear he yielded into turn 2, and now Onofre up towards P8 overall, Senegal down to P9 overall, and that's just a change in place overall, not within respective class, as they both make their way down the Ref Proposta and into turn number 4. But as they do, it is the case both drivers settling into the rhythm once again with just under 4 minutes to go plus the final lap. But really, since the start of this race, since the opening 5 minutes, it's been a little bit quiet on the battling front within classes. This can happen, to be fair, it depends on the venue. We normally see a lot of battling at Interlagos, but I think the instance that we saw at the start of the race did space the field out quite a bit, and particularly Austin Farr and Jermaine Warren have literally disappeared off into the distance compared to the rest of the field. Although it should be said that Duncan Moraes in P3 has been keeping Jermaine Warren honest in terms of lap times, and the Goldwing Motorsports driver here from South Africa, a very determined driver to chase after Jermaine Warren, had a very good few laps previously. It's only in the last couple of laps where his pace has started to drop back into the low 42s, whereas Warren's still running in the high 41s. But I think Moraes will be happy with how the car's going around here, and definitely looking hooked up from his perspective as he makes his way across towards another lap. And we see Jermaine Warren there putting in his personal best of the race at 41.340. My goodness, Warren making a statement, and that is, I've taken this one off into the distance as they make their way around. But we had a bit of an instant further down the road, and that is Jordan Butler, who's got it very wrong. And I think the tyre tracks across the circuit tell the full story there, which is the DNA Racing McLaren driver went wide out of Juncal corner, put two wheels on the grass, or at least the rear right tyre on the grass, and the car got upset and spun across the circuit. At least that's what I'm going to say is most likely what's happened. But I think we've still got a car that's parked up there, and well, that's John Wilding. But John Wilding's just gone off circuit, I think. So I think the DNA Racing driver in the Porsche has also had a similar thing happen, as has what was Butler, and well, both drivers there having a bit of a disastrous day in the office, it would seem, as he makes his way around towards the end of a lap. There's only a couple more laps left in it now with 2 minutes to go. In terms of battles out on circuit, I don't think we're going to be seeing many more battles right now, given the fact the field has spaced out quite a bit. And again, the two closest drivers on circuit are our two leaders in the respective classes, running P1, P2. And I do have to wonder whether there is a temptation from Jermaine Warren to go for the move for the lead right at the end of the race. But given it is the season opener and he's had a very quiet race, I think he'll just want to get to the finishes. We do see a little bit of oversteer there on corner exit from turn 12 from Austin Farr. He's just pushing the limits a little bit to see how far the car can go in terms of the available grip, which I think is fair to do so when you've got such an advantage. You can afford to play with the car a little bit, although not too much. You don't want to bin it at the end of the day and lose out on what is a guaranteed win effectively within your class, with Austin Farr being the best part of what is 14 seconds up the road from Sam Reynolds running P2. As you see, Jermaine Warren sets the fastest lap of everybody out on circuit, a 41.13, and well, Warren, I think, will be taking that fastest lap for definite in the AM class, and Farr, I think, will be doing the same within the Pro class as they make their way around on the final lap. But meanwhile, running a bit further back, Sam Reynolds here, he is being closed up, interestingly enough, by Roger Ganesh. Ganesh has closed up on him the last couple of laps. And as they make the way through turn number 3 on this final lap, I think Van Olsen will feel very comfortable that Ganesh is not going to try and put a late move on him by the looks of things as they make the way down the Red Proposta straight here. But as they come on through, it really is the case. Looking from them to Fernando Takahashi here, well, he's in a bit of a no man's land. He's got two pros around him, one in front and one behind. That is Bajulaz in front and Offred behind. But I think the BMW M4 driver will take a lot of positives from today. Qualifying was weak, but his race pace has been very strong and he's really been able to hold firm. That BMW does look very planted in his hands under race conditions. It seems to really hold well as the race goes deeper and deeper, and tyre wear becomes a concern as he makes his way through turn 6 and 7 quite comfortably. But as he does here, under braking into turn number 8, we do look back to the front of the field here, and well, they will be coming around to complete their race this time around as they make their way through Juncal corner. Well, they both qualified up front, but it was Warren who started on pole ahead of Bajulaz, and Farr was not too far behind on the top 3 rows. But as they come through the final corners, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish and consistently delivering to the line. And as he comes through the final corner, he will take the season opening win overall. And in the GT4 Pro class, it is Austin Farr who wins ahead of Jermaine Warren, who takes the win in the GT4 AM class. And then behind them by a margin of 10 seconds, it will be Duncan Race from Goldwing Motorsports who takes second place in the AM class ahead of Sam Reynolds, who takes second place in the Pro class for Goldwing Motorsports. And it is Roger Ganesh who takes third place in the AM class in a great day for Sunday GT Turtles. Jerome Bajulaz in the end comes home third on the podium in the Pro class. That's P6 overall. The Blue Flag Motorsports driver will be kicking himself for what was a difficult start to the race where he lost it through this corner in particular. And then it's Fernando Takahashi, P7 overall, P4 in the AM class ahead of Edwin Onofre, who comes home P8. Then Mark Senegal P9 and John Lonzone P10, completing that top 10. Lee Porter just behind at P11 with Craig Parks, and we can see them parking up there. Jordan Butler as well for DNA Racing. A lot of drivers having a very difficult day in the office. Kenny Smith there in P14 as he comes to the line on his debut. And well, there's a lot of positives to take from today, but a lot of areas for improvement for the privateer. But he does come to that finish line P14 ahead of John Wilding and also Rodney Felker. And well, John Wilding coming on through to take the last finishing position on the lead lap, and Rodney Felker a lap down in P16 as we're to understand as he comes to the line here to complete our race one of this series. As he makes his way across the line here, one driver, and I think indeed a whole team will be celebrating. Goldwing Motorsports in the end locking out what was a brilliant set of podium places. Austin Parr taking the Goldwing Motorsports team to victory in the GT3 Pro Class. And well, it is well, the GT3 Pro Class, the GT4 Pro Class. I'm going to have to get that fixed, ladies and gentlemen. It's a case through force of habit. I'm very sorry. But Austin Parr taking that win in the Pro Class. And well, Duncan Ray's in the end right up there on the overall podium and taking that second place in the AM class, and he'll be very pleased about that. Jermaine Warren being the fly in the ointment for MOP Racing, taking the win in the AM class, just getting in there ahead of Moraes, but still plenty for Goldwing Motorsports to be pleased about as we take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. As we do wait for those race results to come on in, and I think it may be the case they're taking a little bit of time to come in, ladies and gentlemen. Well, my apologies. I think, in fact, the results are not coming through today. A bit of a technical issue. Well, we will get those next time. We will get those fixed for you. I think it's a slight issue with our broadcasting software. But with that, thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy today's season opener and you want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, then why not check out MPRL at either their official Discord or their official Twitter, as seen through the links displayed on screen. And particularly I can suggest the Twitter, that being at twitter.com/MOP Racing. But now our drivers and their teams will be packing up their bags, packing up the trucks and getting on their flights, because they'll be heading from Brazil to the Red Bull Ring, Spielberg in Austria, to continental Europe. We go from South America to continental Europe for round number 2. And whilst the racing will happen earlier in the week, that'll be on Wednesday, the 1st of June 2022. The racing will we bring you all the racing action once again as if it were live on Sunday, the 5th of June 2022 in a week's time. You won't want to miss it, because if we can guarantee anything, that Sao Paulo today delivered a very close racing, albeit a few incidents and a few teething issues for some of our drivers. But the Red Bull Ring delivers fantastic racing action, particularly the battles of the slipstream and the battles on the brakes into the hairpins, and you will not want to miss out when these GT4 machines go absolutely hammer and tongs against one another, racing up towards each and every corner. But with that, we have been the MPRL. I have been your host and broadcaster, Paul TX141 Walsh. If you have enjoyed, be sure to let us know. But until next time, have a great rest of your weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.